Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where everyone is. Happy, let's see, Tuesday, and welcome to everyone. Let's see, we have lots of friends and fans on the call already. Sorry for it taking just about a minute to set up. Of course, we've been doing these types of events for years, but they never seem to go exactly smoothly. But thanks for your patience while we set everything up. We've got lots of meaty stuff to go through today. I just want to remind everyone, for anyone who's not familiar with Livestorm, there is a chat function and there's also a questions area. So if people want to ask questions as we're going, please feel free to do so. To the extent possible, we want to make this collaborative. And for now, if people want to start jotting in where you are located and what your organization is, to get things started, that would be super helpful as we get everything else set up. Or if you just want to say what your presentation preferred software is so that we can take notes at what we think is best, that would be great. And we're just getting our other speaker, Jonah, on as well. Denver, how's the snow? For anyone, I see there's some Bay Area. I will tell my little introduction later, but I'm originally from Sweden, and there's a reason I moved to the Bay Area of California. It's for the sun, and we have not been seeing any of it, and it's starting to really affect my question me in my life choices of moving and living here. But hey, give me reasons. Yeah, someone else tell me why they want to get together for a coffee or a drink, and I'll stay here longer. One of the things that we can get started while we're waiting on, we're just dealing with a technical issue of getting Jonah on, as well as to promote him as a speaker. We could quickly just go through what the agenda is today. And also, if there's anything that people want to cover on today's call, in addition, or anything that people have questions for, please feel free to list those as we go. I'll get started by saying we're just going to do a quick introduction first as well, some of the things that we're going to be talking about. We're really going to be talking mostly about why 2023 is the year to start to target DEI and ESG progress, and also what the differences are between those two. As some of you may be familiar, they sometimes get muddied up together. They are very, very different, although they have some interconnectivity, but they are very, very, very different. We're going to be talking about hitting targets and specifically how DEI can benefit your organization and the resources you need to get started. We're going to talk about ESG and how that can benefit your organization and the resources you need to get started. And we expect to have a pretty meaty Q&A. We have this thing set up for an hour, but we have already been receiving quite a number of questions via email in advance from this as well. So as something comes up and as something is of interest or you want us to drill down a little bit more into, feel free to list them as they come. And we're still trying to, there we go. I got Jonah. Hey, Jonah. I thought you were going to have me go solo for a little bit. I am going to move on to the next slide and just introduce ourselves today, which will be a perfect segue for Jonah. So really briefly, I'm Patrick LaSalle. I'm VP of Sales at CNote. I've been with CNote for about 2.5 years. I come from what I like to refer to as traditional finance, whereby I worked for about 12 years for big banks, some of who, actually all the ones that I worked at are still alive, but who knows with current market events how much longer some of them will be. And let's see here, there we go. Went into fintechs, but actually really searched for something that was much more mission oriented. For those of you who might have missed this in the beginning, I'm originally from Sweden. And as much as it's not a utopian society, everyone on the CNote team and clients of ours all know how fondly I speak of it, and primarily because a lot of the issues that we face in the U.S. aren't really as big of issues there. And so one of the things about living in the U.S. that makes me proud of working at CNote is being able to work on some of the issues about closing the wealth gap and about financial access to all. I'm going to pass it over to Jonah now and allow him to introduce himself as well.
Hey everybody, Jonah Edelman. Sorry for the delay in getting in. I'm new to this digital platform. I'm thrilled to be with you today to talk about the Racial Equity at Work Certification Program. I'm the co-founder of the program, which is part of Management Leadership for Tomorrow, which is a nonprofit organization that's 20 years old and has been a leading racial equity partner for companies in the US. So, and really thrilled about your participation and also our partnership with CNote. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Jonah. So starting into this, so why now? Let's talk about why now. Well, this may not be a shock, but the wealth gap is increasing. The pandemic saw this increasing to record levels. We want to talk specifically about how corporations are uniquely situated to work on these issues. We want to talk to you specifically about why communities really, really care and how corporations can show up and meaningfully and authentically show up to work on these issues. But we also want to talk about how actually working on these issues really, really is rewarded, not just internally with internal stakeholders, but with external stakeholders, with customers, with press. We just pasted a little quote here. I won't read from Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, but I'll quickly, I guess, read it anyways. It's not just the profits, but purpose that will drive sustainable long-term growth. And this means investing in employees, protecting the environment, and delivering value to customers. Companies that fulfill their purpose and responsibilities to stakeholders reap the benefits, reap the rewards over the long term. I'm now going to turn it back over to Jonah for this next slide.
So, there's often an unrealistic expectation for ESG with respect to moving the needle on racial equity. As you all know, racial equity is a very small part of the S in ESG, and so it's unrealistic to expect that ESG programs are going to help you move the needle. We set up this specific program as a comprehensive first of its kind mechanism to enable companies to make overall progress toward Black equity and Hispanic equity and sustain it. And there's a lot of benefits to that in terms of, depending on the industry, some research around profitability and certainly retention and attraction of talent. And then institutional investors have very strongly embraced our program, which we'll describe shortly, as the sort of proxy for rigor that they're looking for. So as far as ESG stewardship goes, there is a close tie, and institutional investors certainly are very committed. And 2 of the top 10 institutional investors, in fact, are including a recommendation to participate in racial equity at work in their ESG conversations in the upcoming proxy season, just as an example of that tie.
Thanks, Jonah. Next slide is on me. Stronger together. So as many of you may be familiar, DEI and ESG often get convoluted into being bucketed as the same thing when in fact they're very, very different, although there is some interconnectivity as well. So DEI and ESG frameworks complement each other, but they are often conflated. And so what we really try to work on and try to enable corporations to have is targeted solutions in each area that require different strategies, expertise, and metrics for success. And focusing in on DEI does not mean that you're neglecting ESG, and also obviously vice versa as well. So authentic progress is attainable in both areas with the right resources to help. So really what we want to cover on today's chat primarily is really helping individuals understand where they are different, where there is interconnectivity, why they are both independently important, and how to work on them. Turning it back to you now, Jonah.
Thanks, Patrick. So I want to give you an overview of the Racial Equity at Work Certification Program. And the benefits to DEI. I think nobody would be part of this call if you weren't already convinced that there was eh, core importance. It's not a nice to have. I'd say on the positive, improving retention is certainly part of the point. Talent is core to every organization's success, and companies that aren't pursuing racial equity with rigor are having and or are going to have greater challenges retaining staff and attracting qualified candidates. Profitability, investor relations are also obviously really important. And I think we all believe that diversity creates better decisions, supports innovation. The customers of today and tomorrow are much more diverse in most cases than the leadership of companies that are attempting to market to those customers. And so there's a benefit of gradually better aligning who is on your team with who you're attempting to engage as customers. I think it's clearly beneficial. We're past the George Floyd moment when there's sort of a we sensed in the beginning of our program a really strong kind of external impetus, and what we're seeing now is a really steady stream of companies that want to be better, that may have had their post George Floyd plans happen and end, and they're trying to figure out what to do next. You may have done certain activities and not made as much progress as you'd like. You may have institutional investors or clients asking questions about what you're doing. You may be taking a tactical approach and doing some of the right things, but not a strategic approach. So we created this program really as a resource for those different use cases. If you're at the beginning of your journey, by the way, that's also fine. One of the kind of myths is often that we have to get our house in order before we participate. When in reality, companies that are very early stage benefit the most in many cases from embracing this program, in that we provide an overarching measurement framework as well as support the development of rigorous plans, and then help you with execution, and then recognize you for progress along the way. So it really doesn't matter where you are in the continuum.
Let's move on to the next one. So ESG progress for you is progress for all. I want to talk to you all about some of the ESG benefits that people often don't think about when they're implementing these programs, because to Jonah's point, there are often people who think I have to get everything ready and I have to make a very large, grandiose plan, and it becomes to a degree scary, off-putting, something that you're looking to really get every possible stakeholder that you might need in place, everyone that may have a piece of the puzzle before you start implementing. When in reality, there's things you can start doing really, really quickly to start chipping away at some of your goals. But some of the main benefits that aren't often talked about, but really, really we want to make sure people are aware of, is that ESG really can help you minimize risk, meet your investment criteria, certainly be ahead of regulations, and really, really help grow your bottom line. People are really sometimes often not thinking about how much they can minimize risk and build resilience to operational risks. The other thing that people are demanding much more now of stakeholders, shareholders, is that you have investment criteria within your policies that look at climate change and consider that into your investment criteria. It's certainly being spoken about a lot more in the news recently about companies with higher ESG scores get onto different investment platforms, attract more investors. There's been a lot of talk, especially in the US, about mirroring policies that exist in Europe and abroad, about regulation, about requiring companies, about having more visibility into their ESG plans and into their ESG investments, which are, to the extent that how much you're watching some of these things in the news, certainly coming. It's a question of when, not if, certainly. And then the last thing is as well that putting in ESG policies will really, really help opportunities to reduce waste, increase efficiencies, and optimize supply chains. And really, I can speak to a lot of our clients and a couple of them that I know who are even on this, who I'm going to maybe call on later. You can really talk about how this has increased customer loyalty and how this has really made your company seen as a leader in the space and as someone that other companies want to follow. So let's talk about how to improve some performance. Starting off, absolutely want to start thinking about diversifying vendor relationships. Obviously, with SVB happening and sort of the bank issues that are going on at the moment, people are looking at how they can diversify their bank relationships. But bank relationships are only one of those things, and we certainly encourage every single institution to be looking at things like that about the various ways, not only to reduce your risk in where you're banking and where you hold capital, but also thinking about how you can do a positive social impact towards that. Uh, Activating your balance sheet is a very, very simple way, which corporations have not considered in the past, how to help improve performance. I can't speak to how many institutions that I've spoken to that when we talk about implementing ESG or DEI goals to the organization, they think their brain is targeted towards charity, towards giving, towards philanthropic exercises. But in reality, yes, those are all great. But not only do you need to do those, you can also do things where you're getting a financial return, but also helping support local communities in your banking and investment activities. Um, the last thing too, or another thing I would say is thinking about impact stories. I think the days are gone where people invest just to so to speak tick a box um, and just create something based on the notion that they have to do something. I think right now people are entering the market into these places really, really authentically thinking, if I'm going to do this, I want to do this right. And in order to do things right, I need to be able to track and monitor the performance of how these things are actually happening. One of the things that's becoming increasingly transparent is companies who are being fined for greenwashing or for doing products that aren't, I'll call it impactful, when in reality there are tons of very, very impactful solutions out there that authentically show up what institutions are trying to prove. And if I would give one piece of advice that I hear from probably every institution that we work with, it's to really figure out what's the story you're trying to sell. And there's no wrong story. There's no, you have to target one specific area. You have to target one specific impact theme. You have to target one specific demographic or geographical area. Whatever your company's goals are and what you're trying to achieve, that's where you want to start, because you can always start there and you can always end up doing more and more. I'm going to turn it back to Jonah now to talk a little bit about the MLT certification program summary.
Thanks, Patrick. And I've given you a little bit of an overview of the impetus behind this program to enable comprehensive improvement. Our program has 4 key components. We worked with Boston Consulting Group over a period of several months to create a first of its kind measurement framework that it will enable you to, and is enabling our 75 partners to determine where they are in the aggregate with respect to their journey to Black equity and Hispanic equity. So we created a scoring rubric that has 18 indicators across 5 pillars. The 5 pillars span internal and external levers. Representation, compensation, workplace culture are the internal levers that we measure. And then business practices, which Patrick was alluding to, and then contributions and investments, which he also alluded to in terms of how you use your capital. All that goes into developing an overall score out of 110 points. And those 18 indicators are very thoughtfully developed that help you both determine where you are overall, but also where you're further along and where you have more gaps, which then enables us to work with you to develop a plan strategy that works for you, what your path is to certification, which is essentially an absolute standard for good. Previous to our program, there really wasn't an absolute standard at all. It was programs that measure relative progress by one company versus another, which is, on its face, very inadequate, in that it doesn't actually drive real progress, doesn't help you know or communicate to key stakeholders how you were doing on that journey. And then there has not been, prior to this program, a mechanism to assure rigorous pursuit of progress. And so the second part of our program, that roadmap, does that. We work with our partners to develop 3-year Black equity at work and Hispanic equity at work plans that are focused on your strengths and priorities and limitations. And we assure that those plans are rigorous. We support you in developing those plans based on a team that we assign to you. And the plan components are really business plan fundamentals, root cause analysis, activities that help you address your root causes, setting targets, identifying KPIs, so you can be assured that you're making progress, indicating how frequently you're going to monitor progress. So we're essentially enabling you to develop business plans for racial equity that have the same level of rigor as other parts of your business, which is not the norm for racial equity. This is why institutional investors are so supportive and why our partners have made consistent progress over the 2 years plus this program's been in place. Then we support your implementation and then recognize you for making progress along the way, which is meaningful for talent in existing employees, for talent you're trying to recruit, for institutional investors, and for clients. The scorecard highlights here show you sort of the level of rigor that has been at the core of this program. So, we did multiple months of developing the initial framework. We validated it with use cases, alpha testing, and now 70 plus employers scoring themselves. And to be clear, this is not one size fits all. We don't say you have to do these 18 things. We help you measure across 18 indicators and then work with you to determine your path. We reward progress, which is really important because oftentimes DEI can feel unattainable and sometimes discouraging and demotivating. Our partners communicate the exact opposite. By quantifying and then supporting, a systematic approach, they're making progress. Their executives feel and they're clear on the progress they're making, and also they're clear where they have continued gaps, which enables, a generally more efficient pursuit. This is an example. This is one of 2 slides that we created to show you examples of progress of our partners. They're moving the needle across all 5 pillars, which is not surprising because of the rigorous approach they're taking. But you can see examples of larger companies, smaller companies, companies in different sectors that have made demonstrable progress as a result of their participation. The bottom line here is that this is absolutely possible. The needle will move if you take a rigorous approach, and we're seeing that consistently. And as noted earlier, it's really something that's imperative for a variety of stakeholders. And so this program is, I would say, both motivating and beneficial, but also risk mitigating. Patrick, back to you.
Thanks, Jonah. So Jonah, MLT, and CNote and us, we have a close partnership, but really want to stress the fact that today we really want to enable the audience with resources, information, talk to you about both of our organizations, but really just amplify the point that we are one of many, many great solutions out there as your company thinks about their ESG and DEI goals. I'm going to spend just a minute talking about CNote and how we operate. So, I don't know why this thing is moving forward. So CNote, we are a women-led technology platform using financial innovation to close the wealth gap. So really think of CNote as a platform that enables you to have a banking relationship, whether that be on a cash way or fixed income or any other way, to move capital into low to moderate income community. We have been able to successfully move over $300 million of capital from great partners, several that are on this call that I'm happy to see today, into a network of mission-driven financial institutions. So really what we're trying to do is that we are trying to unlock the power of over 2,000 institutions that exist all across the country that are low to moderate income communities, such as CDFIs, community development financial institutions, LIDs, low-income designated credit unions, and MDIs, minority deposit institutions. Why we partner with those great organizations is because it's an example of 90% of their businesses, their investments go to BIPOC-led small businesses, and 40% of get invested into women-led small businesses. These are just 2 of the impact goals that we work closely towards, but it's certainly not exhaustive. I think we have dozens and dozens of additional impact metrics that we help organizations track by utilizing our network of pushing capital into our community partners. As a visual, very quickly, we allow institutions to see where they have their deposits, where they have potential investments. We try to we ensure that every single dollar, this is, I guess, especially prevalent now due to the SVB event, in that we sparse out deposits into less than $250,000 increments into our network of community banks, credit unions, MDIs. The way we're able to do this is we're really trying to solve both for corporate investors, but also for depository institution partners, in that we are not pushing too much depository institutions that aren't equipped to handle a $20 to $50 million investments, and we're also helping large institutions move upwards of $100 million towards goals and impact areas that they're trying to achieve into a nationwide network. To the earlier point as well that I wanted to talk about, one thing that we really like to pride ourselves as well on is that we're able to showcase impact metrics based off of whatever deposits our clients have placed with our institutional partners as well. We're able to target geography, we're able to target impact themes. So it's really about working with each institution in a consultative way to try to achieve impact goals. And to my earlier point as well, making sure that CNote isn't the only solution that companies are working with. There are plenty of great partners that we have out there as well that we try to offer up, so that people have a rounded view of what their capabilities are. And corporations right now are the leaders in this space, really being able to provide great investments into these themes that matter deeply, both to them, to the communities, and to their stakeholders. Really briefly as well, sorry, I wasn't meant to talk to this long about CNote. Really quickly, what we do is we help with diligence. So the big question that a lot of institutions are thinking about is, great, I have an allocation, I really care about indicating or putting capital where I want to place it, but I don't know what institutions, I don't know how much, I don't know how I can track it, I don't want to open up 50 bank accounts, I don't want to spend time doing the manual work around this stuff. And so that's one of the things that we help with. But not only that, that once the capital is deployed, we help administering it, making sure that it's also performing and that it's in the community and that it's doing good work, and that the community partners are able to actually report back to you all what is going on, what the financial tracking is, what the balance, the compliance, and also, as I've alluded to, the impact reporting as well. And probably my favorite thing about the organization is some of the borrower stories that we do. So impact metrics, depending on how you interpret information, I guess I would say, because I've realized that everyone is different. Some people love metrics, love being able to say, here are some of the metrics that I was able to achieve. This is what suits perfectly into our CSR report, into our annual reporting, into our stakeholder reporting. But I really like the stories of actually understanding the people, the individuals that were behind actually getting access to capital that they wouldn't have had before, if it wasn't due to strong corporate investors, such as some of the ones that we work with and some of the ones that are on this call as well. And so I really encourage you all to spend some time on our website to take a look at what businesses, what individuals, what families, what communities were positively impacted by institutions saying that I want to do good with my dollars. Last thing that I will go through as well is some additional resources that I'll probably switch back towards when we go through our Q&A. But we have supplier diversity resources for you all. This presentation will be shared out afterwards as well, and it's got hyperlinks as well. And so I really encourage everyone to look at some of the supplier diversity questions. The corporate cash for impact, what institutions can do to get started. To Jonah's earlier point, really want to stress the fact that whatever initiatives you have going on, it's never too late to get started. It's never that you're behind. It's all about moving to action as quickly as possible. And then lastly, really telling the ESG story, frameworks, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, GRI framework, some of the things that you can incorporate. And I will now move it on to Q&A. Jonah, if there's anything that you missed that you want to cover off on there on the last points, please feel free. But if not, I know we have a lot of people on this as well. and we're already starting to get a couple questions. So Jonah, any last remarks, or should we get started?
Oh no, happy to get to Q&A, and I see some good friends already who are knowledgeable about the program are participating, so that's really wonderful as well.
Excellent. So I have a question here, which is every dollar insured through CNote's platform? I'm willing to guess that this is someone that's been closely working or attuned to the SVB and Signature Bank events. Yes, is my answer. One of the things that we have seen an incredible amount of demand from the last, I would say, week and a half are institutions who are really struggling with trying to figure out where they can de-risk their cash. CNote insures every single dollar. So to operationally walk through, for those of you unfamiliar, we will take an allocation, whatever the size of it will be. And as I was mentioning earlier, we've gone as large as over $100 million, where we will sparse that out into less than $250,000 increments and put it with our different community partners. So not only are you de-risking your dollars because it's remaining below FDIC insurance, but you're also able to track the performance of the social impact of that as well. Let's see. Got another question here. How does impact tracking work? I can talk from our side, and Jonah, I'm going to ask you as well to maybe cover off a little bit about that as well. So, impact tracking. So, I'm going to talk about this pretty basically. Um, our partners, which are about over 2,000 institutions across the country, not only do we track to make sure that obviously they're financially sound, that we're comfortable having our investors place deposits there, but every single quarter we're receiving what I call impact metrics as well. So they are sending us data on the number of BIPOC-led businesses, uh, any amount of client sustainability goals that they're working towards, what percentage of female-led businesses, indigenous populations, Latinx community. They're providing us with all that data, which our impact evaluation team and our technology then amalgamates and looks at each dollar that was put by each investor to be able to say, well, this is how many, what percentage went towards BIPOC-led businesses. This is what went towards whatever other impactful information that you're looking to track as well. So it's really data. It's data from our partners, and it's not something I want to make clear that we put as a contingency on these banks and credit unions that we're working with. They're already tracking this data. They're just using our technology to help amplify and show the good work that they are already doing. Jonah.
Yeah, so in our case, we are helping you make progress across multiple domains, and you utilize a digital platform that we've developed that's user-friendly and maintains confidentiality, where you input information that's not sensitive, in the sense that it's not your pay equity audit, not your EEO1 itself, but just basic data. And then that enables us to provide a score for you. And then annually, after you are plan approved, you assess progress. And again, that score is not made public. It's a way for you to chart your progress and then to note areas where you've made more strides and areas where you have not gotten as far as you'd like. And so the whole focus for us from the measurement point of view is around measuring your progress with respect to key indicators. And when there are examples of substantial progress, we create short case studies and then, with permission from our partners, share them. So it's become a very powerful best practice sharing recommendation engine and learning community.
I've got another question here. Let's see, it's a bit of a mouthful. For both ESG and DEI, both giving great examples of how orgs can share externally, but have either of you had any success advice with internal sharing and keeping employees apprised of our efforts? Jonah, I'll take a first stab at this. Yes, in short, I've heard all kinds. So one of my favorite stories that I came across a few months ago was a treasurer for a large organization who, on their own, decided to start investing in an ESG fund. They also became a CNote partner as well. and not with a big amount, to be fair, but just something that they were trying to figure out, is this something that I can get started and doing, working? And they said that they suddenly became, I wouldn't call the word inundated, but they couldn't believe the internal press that they suddenly received from partners saying, I didn't know that we were working on these things. This is so great. Can we learn more? How can we leverage this? How can we share this to our internal and external partners? And how can we potentially do more? And how can we think about a strategy of making this into a more comprehensive strategy? So it's one of the great examples I like to bring up of institutions doing things in a way that you wouldn't have thought of. Someone, treasurer, decided on his own accord to start working on these issues without pressure, without a mandate, just because he felt like this was the right thing to do. So the best way I would think about it as well, as a best practice, is really defining who your stakeholders are. Is it your CFO? Is it your CEO? Is it your board? Is it chief sustainability officer? Is it head of marketing? Is it, any stakeholder that you can think of that might have a desire to understand and know better what you're working on? Try to get them in the room. Get them in the room and develop an action plan about how you want to share this information, because this has really mattered. During the Great Resignation, that might seem like ancient history now, but it was actually pretty recent, as in like less than 2 years ago. We were fielding calls from a lot of organizations saying, we really want to know how we can use our community investments as a tool to help let our employees, our Gen Zers, know that we care about issues that they care about, and we want to share this out. So it's really about, I would say, defining who your stakeholders are and really defining out how you can action plan that.
Yeah, I would add, we've had, across the board positive impact with regard to how internal stakeholders and our partner companies have responded. Our orientation in terms of advising on communication is humility, transparency, concreteness, and in general, our partners take that same approach up front when they are beginning their participation. And I'll speak to your question, CB, in just a sec about how to get started. We support them in communicating internally. This is something that ESGs, really positively respond to, that Black and Hispanic employees and other employees who care about racial equity really positively respond to. Often boards are looking for this type of rigor. We have many Black and Hispanic and other board members who encourage participation. And then institutional investors and clients are often really positive. And then the quarterly check-ins that we do after plans are approved are a great mechanism to assure continued communication, because it's really important that it not be one time and then you lose trust because there's not a follow-up cadence of consistent communication around how things are going. As are the annual progress monitoring that happens and the updating of plans. Those all create opportunities to continue communication internally. We've also had some of our partners make their participation in racial equity at work a pillar of their talent branding strategy, because they know that candidates of color are looking for real evidence of commitment to rigor, and this program provides that. So it isn't the reason that companies choose to participate. They're choosing to participate because they want to make progress. They want to sustain that progress comprehensively. They want to mitigate risk of not making progress with and the resource drain and time drain, and culture drain that creates. But the sort of benefits culturally are significant. To your question, CB, around getting started, yeah, it is easy. It's important to get buy-in from key stakeholders. Let me just say that up front. You want to make sure that the key decision makers whose support is needed to execute, is there. So we'd want to have the right conversations, the conversations with the right people, and then signing a certification agreement and indicating who your lead, your executive sponsor or sponsors, and your communications lead will be, is really what gets you going. Then we assign a partner success team to you, and they hold a kickoff meeting and get you on that digital platform, and you begin your baselining and then move toward your plan development. So it's an efficient and effective and real improvement process.
There's another question here as well about the types of resources these programs What types of resources are these programs, both NLT and CNote, going to take for my team? How much time, money, et cetera, do I need to be prepared to allocate? I can start off from the CNote side. We like to do an initial call with all the relevant stakeholders, be that from Treasury, be that from someone in sustainability and CSR and corporate responsibility, or if it's HR, really the stakeholders. And we found that unfortunately very few corporations are the same. There's always a little bit of a nuance, but we like to get everyone together for an initial call to talk about what the goals are. Goals in terms of risk, in terms of geography, in terms of impact theme, and really try to figure out how we can best support. And then we come back with a proposal of what we'd like to implement. And then once that's signed off and agreed upon, the resources are incredibly short and you're set up on the platform. So I would say in terms of actual time with CNote, you're looking at probably no more than 1 hour, 1 hour and a half.
And our program's different. It's an incredible leverage tool for leaders in the company that want to move the needle. We ask that there be a lead assigned to facilitate your participation in the program, and as I said, executive sponsors and a communications lead. The process with regard to baselining is very efficient. It's unlike other survey programs that you participated in or participate in, which are laborious, and oftentimes it's hard to see how all that effort connects to anything substantive. So your baseline assessment happens in a digital platform. It corresponds to our scorecard. It's all information that you typically have readily available and is not time consuming. You get your baseline score then, and we then have a meeting to discuss your path to certification, your plan strategy, and you have a planning team that develops their components of the plan. For example, your procurement team, your procurement lead would be on point to develop the supplier diversity related part of your plan. And our partner success team will support stakeholders in the company who have questions. And the plan development process is the most intensive part of it. We have partners that finish and are approved within 2 months. And the actual process itself doesn't take long. It's not a massive tome that we're asking for. It's really answering those questions I noted earlier around getting to root causes, stipulating the activities, setting targets. And so that can be very efficient. It's just getting the right folks focused on it. And then once you're executing, your various partners in the company are executing on the plan. And again, as I said, we check in quarterly with the lead or leads, and then the lead checks in quarterly with the planning team. So it's a pretty typical cadence of plan development and execution, I would say. It's very time saving. It's very risk mitigating in that what often happens is there's a lot of churn and there's a lot of wasted time around what should we focus on? How ambitious should we be? And then there's huge time wasting that happens when there isn't a root cause analysis, and thus the focus is on proximate causes and the activities don't actually address root causes, and thus you don't move the needle. So really helping mitigate the risk of either inaction or ineffective action. And resource-wise, we're charging a very, very small fraction of what it would cost to enlist a consulting firm, which maybe some of you all have done, and providing consulting level or higher leverage. And so we charge a range of $25,000 to $50,000 based annually for each program, Black and Hispanic equity at work, depending on the annual revenue, U.S. revenue. And then we provide a discount for companies of 25% on each program for doing both Black and Hispanic equity work to encourage participation in both programs. And then finally, we discount the annual fee by 50% once you reach certification, since our goal is for your incentives and our to be aligned, essentially, in terms of progress and financial. And so this is intended to be a long-term partnership that really gets integrated into the fabric of your company, which thereby really helps to significantly increase the possibility or probability of progress over time, and mitigates the risk of making progress and then reverting.
Excellent. I've got one more question here as well. I'm facing some pushback from our CEO board on spending for ESG DEI programs because of economic uncertainty. Um, what can I say in response to show how important this is? I'll take the first stab again. Um, I would really emphasize that yes, there's economic uncertainty going on at the moment. There's volatilities in the market that we haven't seen for quite a while. Um, and I realize that that makes companies have to make headcount cuts from time to time, and that makes programs budgeted budgets go down. All these things, but what I would say is that it no one on the team is struggling to put food on the table, and low income communities are. At times like this, the wealth gap widens and gets even wider. And so these are the times to actually show up and show that your organization is a leader in the space and is a company that other companies want to follow, and that you're a person in the organization that can showcase that even in times of economic certainty, you're able to access programs, initiatives, to do good and to show that you weren't swayed by fear and volatility and took a leadership position during times like this. And happy to work with any organization that's receiving that pushback, because we've been able to see people in corporate finance, people in all parts of organizations really show up as heroes over this economic volatility, I would say.
Yeah, and I would add, actually, it's been striking to me that we've had outreach from companies that have had really significant negative impacts. And they're, in fact, interestingly, focused on, building back better, to borrow a phrase, and wanting to, as they're recovering, become, more racially equitable. That's been affirming. And I would also say that institutional investors' commitment is very strong and not wavering with regard to racial equity, regardless of the current dynamics. And so from the standpoint of publicly traded companies, it really is an imperative, and it enables you to, by participating in the program, make things a lot easier in terms of, proxy season, and also, be able to do this on your terms in a way that makes sense for you rather than in reaction to shareholder activism.
Lots of great questions. I'm just going to give it a quick moment here to see if there's any additional questions as well. I think I don't want to call on some of my friends here because I know you've had questions before, but I think we may be running dry on the last questions. So I think we can probably end in a couple of minutes early. As I said at the start of this, we'll be sharing out these slides. There'll be contact information, there'll be resources. Um, I guess one of the points that I would wrap up with saying, and Joan, I'll give you a moment as well, is to say that we really want to stress the fact that there are no stupid questions, there are no silly questions, there are no things that we haven't heard before, and we really want to encourage people to see what an inviting area that working on initiatives like this can be, really to help articulate long term where your organization can be when you start looking at these initiatives thoughtfully and authentically. We both MLT and CNote have pretty great network of partners that have been in whatever stage that you and your organization may be at. So be happy to work as a resource to help guide you and educate you to any way that we can.
Yeah, and I would just put a little bit of a plug in for CNote. We've been thrilled to partner with CNote. When we were developing our resources, CNote stood out as a tremendous resource to enable companies to walk their talk with regard to how they use their cash reserves, which many of our partners have been thrilled to do. They just hadn't thought of it candidly before partnering with us, and have had a consistently positive experience with CNote. And I would just say, in general, would be thrilled to have conversations with you if you feel like this could be a fit. You and the right stakeholders in your company with no expectations. Would just like to engage further and see whether this is the right moment for you all to begin this journey in a more rigorous, systematic fashion. So thank you for joining. I just again thank you CNote for all that you do, and Patrick for organizing the webinar.
Thank you, Jonah. You're one of our favorite partners for sure, and can't speak enough about how proud a lot of the organizations are when they get their MLT certification and are able to put that badge on their websites.
Thank you.
And I guess with that, we will close. Thank you, everyone, for taking time. We look forward to any follow-up that we'll receive from you, and have a great rest of your day.